Good morning, St. Maarten. What's up? What's cooking? I have been, out a little while, enjoying myself, doing some things for other people that had asked for some help. And today, I decided to do a show with a very special team. A team of, how would I say? I played with it on Facebook. My good friend Gromiko jumped on it, called me, asked me some things, and eventually made a little poster that he put out. Andrew called me, asked me what it is exactly I'm doing. And because, when you say deal or no deal, as a politician, as a civil servant who has gotten himself in legal hot water, the terminology that I used to bring this show, deal or no deal, creating the impression as if I am going to expose deals, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Now, let me be very clear. I believe that a lot of people are going to look at this politically. And they have a right to, because I'm a politician. But while it might carry a political taste and even some political satire, it will also encompass ethics, integrity, your moral compass, and most importantly, transparency. I'm not going to use the sentence yet, rule of law, like the governor loves to use, but I'm going to call him out today on the rule of law. I believe not because my party is back in government means I will not object and speak out against the government, as it's very important to highlight the various things that are now starting and also that are now being uncovered in the various ministries where clearly the country's best interest was not on the forefront. The public will decide if they made a deal for the people, for themselves, or with the devil. That is your task today. Let's start with the government and the governor. The talks have been serious, they have been long, yet yielding very little during the formation and on the swearing-in ceremony on May 3rd, my birthday. Unfortunately, I did not get the gift I had hoped, which would have been a complete government. But I want to read a few passages out of the governor's speech of that day. And then I will give you the interpretation and the law. Let's go to the first quote. St. Maarten's governing system is that of a parliamentary democratic rule of law. Democratic because we the people elect our representatives. Parliamentary because those representatives are elected to serve in parliament. And the rule of law because a majority of parliament in turn selects a group of candidate ministers that have the trust of that majority to serve in the executive branch. Government. A government that is tasked with the carrying out of the duties of the country in accordance with the law. The government is bound by the law, and just like everyone else. No one, not even the government, is above the law. This is the rule of law, the aim of which is to protect the people of St. Maarten from abuse of power by dividing the powers in the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and the executive branch. The branch that has just taken the oath before you hear today. This was on the swearing-in day. An oath to upholding that rule of law, and in doing so, no matter how difficult, consistency and resultsy, putting the country's interest above personal and individual interest. That was the quote. Now, my observation is as follows. What we have seen is that the governor is a part of our executive branch by means of an article in our Constitution. I believe it's Article 2. I'm not sure. So he too isn't above the law. Even though the ministers collectively carry the responsibility for his political actions. and his actions in government. The ministers carry that responsibility, not him. The governor, though, came with a preconceived opinion that the unwritten laws, which aren't laws, because they're not written. So a handful of people know about these unwritten laws and has decided that people under investigation and or convicted cannot become a minister. This, people, is not a law in St. Maarten. Don't let nobody fool you. And to come and say it was so in the Netherlands and Tilly's, and for the last 14 years it was so in St. Maarten, is a blatant lie. It's not true, people. It's not true. Because in 2010, there was no real screening. The only screening that took place in 2010 was the Prime Minister using the Landsverordening Integriteitsministers, which was established in 2010, to check the ministers on their integrity after they became a minister. But we have spoken of that trajectory already. 2013, they brought in some guidelines. 2014, a kingdom decree was sent to then Governor Holliday to prevent Theo Heiliger from becoming a minister, and all 7 up candidates remained up candidates in Parliament, and none became a minister. And Marcel Gums became the formateur and eventually the Prime Minister in 2015. So please, don't say it was always so, because it wasn't. And in 2016, unfortunately, the government opted to continue the abuse of the law, because guess what? There was nothing that said if you're convicted or if you got a crime. Because Christopher became a minister in 2016 with convictions. You see, we got to be careful when we start to play with the law on convenience, people. On convenience. But it doesn't stop there. This is the problem. It doesn't stop there. The opinion of the governor is based on whether he believes it to be, regardless of what our law says and our constitution says. His opinion. He blabbers about the rule of law, but he applies the rule of law on opinions for his decision. And I say opinions because he wrote that. And hopefully, in the very near future, a lot of letters that went up and down between the Prime Minister and the Governor, and the Prime Minister and the candidate ministers will become public. And then we're going to see who lying and who playing who. Because everybody believes they're a brilliant scholar. But I'll tell you this. There are more than one brilliant scholar in St. Maarten. And you, sir, are not the most brilliant scholar. That is very clear for us. The governor sent back 2 unsigned national decrees to appoint the candidate ministers Peterson and Emmanuel. When the law, not the unwritten one, the law prohibits this. But he speaks of the rule of law. He speaks of the rule of law. But the rule of law says you cannot send them back to the Prime Minister. You got to send them to Holland, sir. If you don't understand it, I'll explain it to you better. Governor's quote again. The formation process, and in particular the screening as well as the role of the governor, seems to customarily be the subject of much discussion during this process. But more so this time around, I dare say, than in years before. Unquote. I must laugh that you even dare say this. What did you think was going to happen? Be honest and tell the people of St. Maarten what you think was going to happen. It is more than normal that people will talk and make demands for clarity in the world of today, where social media rules the world. Not necessarily the rule of law. Not necessarily your opinion. Not necessarily the constitutional norms. Because they're not constitutional norms. They're not unwritten constitutional norms. They are unconstitutional norms that you're applying, Governor, in contradiction to the Charter of the Netherlands, of the Kingdom. Or you didn't check there. You didn't go and do your research in there. While you have one of the best constitutional experts in the kingdom sitting in your cabinet put there by the Dutch government to watch over you, you still seem not to understand the rule of law. This must be comical. I don't know how to look at this no more. I feel embarrassed to say that's our governor. That's one of we people. I feel embarrassed. And I don't get embarrassed easy. My shame box is rough. So I don't get embarrassed and I don't feel ashamed easily. But what you are doing, sir, and then you talk about international review. But what do you think they're doing now? What do you think? You know, while the formateur was bound to confidentialities regarding the discussions with you based on the screening and based on his role, dying so no more, right? You know right now that with openbaarheid van bestuur, your letter of May 7th and his letters of May 13th are going to become public domain. And we're going to have a serious chat about it then. And then you're going to get called out. I can be one of them calling you out. You can be 100% sure of that. I think the abuse of power, the misuse of power. Oh, by the way, you know that's punishable too, right? Well, we can get to that just now. The governor clearly doesn't play by the rules set forth in the law and seems to be extremely politically attached to a local party. For God's sakes, I understood during elections he were waving flags with the shirt on. And while you have your civil rights, your civic rights to vote whom you want for, your position is one of those positions that unfortunately you can't express yourself publicly, politically. It will be like the chief of police or like a judge waving a political flag during elections. Then you're going to get a problem if the other party wins. Because they're going to say, get rid of those people because they are politically affiliated. And you see, the problems are when you look at what's happening in this formation, or what happened at the swearing in, or what happened now with the letters of May 7th, May 13th, moving on, you're going to realize that we are not in a quagmire, but we're in a septic pit. And it's going to get worse. The next quote. Governor's quote. I leave you with an excerpt from the preamble of our Constitution, of which you have just taken the oath. We, the people of St. Maarten, being determined to work with each other, declare that we are a people that believes in the principle of democracy and the rule of law. Unquote. My observations here again. The voters and the formateur clearly believed in the principles of the democracy and the rule of law. Clearly you don't, Mr. Governor. And I'll close with this remark towards you. You outsmarted yourself once again. Weren't these the same two candidate ministers, the persons that stood up to protect the old Simpson Bay Bridge with the Simpson Bay people? The school children asked me if that could be playing a role why they were not allowed to become a minister. I don't know, and I won't be guessing for now. But I'll do this, and I'll say this piece. Will the governor make a deal with the prime minister and appoint the two candidate ministers and ensure that the country has a complete government to represent the people of the country? Or will the governor be reported to the Netherlands, or worse yet, be dragged to court? Be dragged to court for dereliction of duty as he refuses to send up the national ordinance for annulment? I will now take and read a piece of an advice that I received last night. And I'm just going to read a little piece so you can get the gist of what's happening. The Constitution of the Kingdom countries, which also includes the appointment to the process of their ministers, is in principle a separate autonomous matter, which, pursuant to Article 41 and 42 of the Charter of the Kingdom, must therefore be regulated at the national level. For Holland, that's the grondwet, the constitution, their law. And in St. Maarten, Curaçao, and Aruba, it's done through our constitutional and most probably national decrees attached to that constitution. I want to also refer to Article 43, sub 1 of the Charter, according to which the soundness of the administration, as well as the legal certainty and human rights, is also primarily an internal national matter, duty and care. Pursuant to the second paragraph of the same Article 43, bear with me, did I take the right page there? No, I did not. These internal affairs, these autonomous national responsibilities, can also be temporarily elevated to kingdom responsibilities, like the KB 2014 to keep Theo Heiliger out of office. So yes, the Charter allows that. But you didn't do that, sir. You didn't do that. At least that's how it appears from the official explanatory notes of this provision. Only as an ultimum remedium in which great restraints must be exercised by the kingdom will such happen. And they did that in 2014 to keep Heiliger out of office. This is what it is. There are more things on the governor, what he's allowed and what he's not allowed. That advice has now been forwarded to the two candidate ministers and a few lawyers so that they can deal with this matter and see how it is possible to deal with this issue, as this issue does the country no good whatsoever. So, you know, again, a lot of people don't understand the system and they will say A, B, C, or D. I see there's a question here. How is it possible that you are sitting on the table with the Minister of Tea? Are you not convicted? Indeed. This is my second court case. My first court case took me 12 years and I was completely acquitted. Am I a firm believer in justice? I believe in the law. I don't believe in the ones that apply the law. And as long as the law allows me to work, I can work. Or should I start stealing to keep my livelihood alive? You see, you can't just tell a man he ain't allowed to do this or he ain't allowed to do that because of whatever. If the law says I can work, I can work. I have now applied to go back to work, and when that is ready, I will let you know. Fear not. St. Maarten elections. It was nice if I'd see a name, at least I could have addressed you directly, but hiding behind names is a common thing in St. Maarten. Let's go over to the second deal or no deal. A new historical point of nonsense in St. Maarten. I read the Daily Herald of May 13th under the heading Carnival Restructuring Policy released in the National Gazette. So when I heard Carnival restructuring, I said, okay, well, and then National Gazette, I said, okay, this is a law, or this is a policy, or something that they put in the National Gazette that means it's something official. And then you go to look at, okay, who made this? I would have wanted to believe that the Ministry of Education, Culture would have been the one to set up such a policy, and then it turned out suddenly to be the Justice Ministry with the former Justice Minister that truly depicts and doesn't like, in no form or fashion, the Carnival committee, for whatever reasons it may be. We're going to discuss them just now. The policy was to have government, civil servants, basically take over the Carnival and run it. And while I am not going to say that the government doesn't have professionals in there that can do it, I am going to say one thing. They don't have the money to even pay for Carnival. More or less to go pay overtime for all those people working in Carnival. So, you know, I'm trying to understand it. I'm really trying to understand why a justice minister that can't even clean up her own mess in her own ministry jumps and goes into another ministry to go make a policy and put it out there. Now, look, civil servants are not volunteers. They're civil servants. They have a day job, and Carnival runs into the nights, parades, jump ups, you name it. The volunteers that do this, and they enjoy that 3-week season, and then they go back to their regular job. So this is normally take vacation, do their little thing, and go back to their job. Civil servants will be a different story. You have to pay them. I mean, we pay the police when they work these hours. So you have to pay the civil servants the same way. But again, that's only going to create more debt for the government than it already has. If the government feels that for the subsidy they're going to give the SCDF, there will be a framework in place, then the subsidy ordinance must be adopted to such. A policy can be made through the culture department that this is what we expect from the SCDF on shows, no more international shows, only cultural shows, only this, only that, well, whatever. And if you do that, you will get this subsidy. And the subsidy, remember, should be a subsidy that they can make the biggest cultural event of St. Maarten a huge success. Not like what happened this year, where they were undermined from various angles. They were undermined, and I will say this publicly, the government intentionally undermined them. It started from in the whole bidding nonsense last year in the budget to this year giving permits to third parties that are going to put on big shows, and major shows in the village were cancelled because they were competing against each other with not even a half a mile in between both of them. So you see, this is the problem. I have nothing against anybody finding doing shows in St. Maarten, but during the Carnival season, you don't do that. Before or after. Maybe we should create a summer festival so we can do all these big shows again and let them use the SCDF. Why go and build up on the ring road? Why go use people's land without permission to do these things? Use the festival village. Maybe the festival village has to be exploited better and marketed better. Maybe it's time for a board to be put in place that will handle the exploitation of that village, not only on a cultural matter or economical matter or touristical matter or religious matter, across the board, so that the village or the festival village, let me call it so, the Jocelyn Arundel Festival Village, can be put to proper use and not like how it is right now. That is what I would have wanted to see a policy for. Not a policy hell-bent on destroying the SCDF because it took away my queen shoes. Not because of that. And that's my position. And who vex? Vex. Remember, when government takes over the Carnival, they will not be getting any donations. They cannot take donations, because then it's going to be seen as a favor to that company or that business. So the million that normally goes into Carnival, or 2 million on donations, is lost. Think about it. Because you all run and do things, but your competency to analyze what this really means is clearly not there. And that's a problem. I always say, shoemaker, stay by your shoes. Don't get involved in things you're not versed in. I don't do it either. because I will make myself look like a fool. I personally hope that that policy that was published is pulled back. And do we need a change? I'm sure we do. There's nothing wrong with change. We fear change, but there's nothing wrong with change if change is genuine. I am sure the SCDF can use some help, financial help. I don't believe that the people sitting on the board at the SCDF don't know how to run a carnival. I honestly don't believe it. I think they can, but they are undermined for whatever reasons. And again, I don't want to get into the personalities, because for me, it's about the carnival. And the personality matters should be dealt with at a different show, different level. And those that feel this or those that feel that, they can go and do that. You know, Carnival costs the government. Carnival costs the government / the people of St. Maarten every year a lot of money. A lot of investments are made. A lot of people fly in to come and see Carnival. Hotels, rooms are filled. Airlines sell tickets. Car rentals are happy. Booth holders are happy, because you get a flux of people coming into the village that are supporting the operations of the village. I know this year, I think booths were $1,250, or last year too. I can remember when booths used to be $200. You knock up a little wooden shack and you were going. We have changed. We have come a long way. We have a great stage. We have nice booths. We have running water, electricity. We got a whole 9 yards. Places are cleaned up. We have a beautiful festival village. I noticed Anguilla is now building one at rapid tempo, because they have realized utilizing a village the right way will bring it a long way. You can imagine tour buses stopping at the festival village, because that's part of the St. Maarten Tourism's office sales pitch to the cruise ships and to the visitors to St. Maarten. Join us at our big festival market. We have one building now behind the there by in the back of the courthouse, across the old jail where it used to be the old fire station, in that area. These are things that we're going to have to sell to bring people there. You don't want to hope people reach there. We gotta sell it so buses, taxis can move there. This is what marketing, this is what making the festival village being self-sustainable. This is where I had hope to see a plan of action, not one to spite the SCDF. What you should do, Tanti, is go pay back the $30,000 that the SCDF paid to clear your bills. Or are you going to wait till they press charges by your favorite entity, the police force? Do we have a deal or not? Restructuring Phillipsburg. The roads and the illegal parking in the Phillipsburg area, including the boardwalk, needs to be tackled soonest, because it has taken away part of the beauty. And I heard that we are going to be restructuring, revitalizing Phillipsburg. But if we're going to do that, we got to do it the right way. We got to make sure that all parties are there. But not only that, but that there is a plan and that there's money. Because the biggest problem St. Maarten has always had, and I've worked in public works, so I can tell you what it is. We build beautiful things, but we don't put a dollar to maintain them. So when you finish building it, it will take a few years and then it's deteriorated. And then it ain't good no more. Why? Because we're not maintaining it. And every time you ask for money to maintain it, they smile and tell you, boy, we got bigger priorities, because we got a new project to build. This is a fundamental issue that public works has always suffered from. And now you see we getting holes in the road. And I ain't going to blame the minister that was there in the past alone. Maintenance is one thing, but structural repairs is a different story. And to do structural repairs on the roads in St. Maarten, you're looking at 80 million guilders to do the whole island, with some links on it. So it's not peanuts. So I don't expect it to happen. But that sinkhole there, that was bound to happen, because you ain't cleaning trenches, you ain't cleaning culverts under the road, road block, water now seeping under the road, moving away sand, sinkholes are going to come. So you did a great job, Minister, by keeping the former minister, by keeping the contracts for trench cleaning away from the public for 3 years. I hope this government finally goes and fixes that. But the same goes for Front Street. Front Street needs to be fixed. It needs to be beautified. The concept of bricks was great. But if you ain't going to maintain it, it's horrible. So maybe it's time to put back the asphalt like what we did on Back Street, also on Front Street. Just put back the asphalt. The sidewalks, we have to fix them. We're going to have to figure out a way to make it yet user-friendly, yet parking unfriendly, because that's what it is. And then we will see. But again, these things have to happen before the high season. So you can't come with a drawn-out plan of 2 years. You need a quick fix of 3 months, 4 months, because you're going to have the hurricane season too. Count that maybe 2 weeks in the August to October, 2 weeks, you might be able to walk good because you're going to have winds, and it's going to be a very active season, they're saying. So you can get a lot of rain and all those things. So you got to keep that in mind when you're doing it. Now it's brilliant to do it because it's extremely hot. So you can work very easy. So I really hope that the Minister of TIAT, the present minister, she's very active. I like Ms. Heiliger Maarten's approach. It's a head-on approach, no nonsense, no dancing around the bush. Bring in her professionals, do what they got to do. They asked me to give them advice on the marketplace, and I did so. I gave them my personal position. I told them, look at this, look at that, look at that. And it's more from the design factor with hurricanes, etc., the user-friendly, the traffic. That's what I did. That's why I was sitting there, sir. I wasn't sitting there as the head of ROMI or the head of infrastructure or the head of new works or anything like that. I wasn't working there for government. I was giving of my free time, giving them advice. That's all it is. On a contract that was bidded out and given off and signed off already by the previous government. Just that you know. Sometimes it's good to ask a question before you run your mouth. But nevertheless, Minister, do we have a deal? Are we going to get something done in town before the high season? The new marketplace, like I said, that's an ongoing story. I know they're busy seeing that the vendors were not pleased with the existing design, that they can work in their request also, and then, you know, hit the ground running and get it built. It was designed. They don't like the design, so let's see what happens there. Then let's go over to the new courthouse. Yeah, I said it correct. The new courthouse. I'm a firm believer that it is necessary to build a new courthouse on Pond Island. I think the government of St. Maarten needs a justice wing. They were first thinking in the past, let's use TLM, you know, buy the old the TLM building where they be now, and let TLM establish someplace else, and they will put it there. I'm saying you can also use part of the parking lot of APS, where you ask APS to fund the justice wing, which will include a courthouse and can also include a parking lot for the surrounding area. Government will have APS build it, and they will rent it from APS with the intention to buy it, so that there's a 10-year, 20-year payment plan, just like how they're doing with the government building right now through SNV. They can do that. And why do you do this? Because all of the monies you will be saving from the rentals of all the different buildings you have right now on St. Maarten rented. Remember, you got a court of guardianship, you got the parolees, you got the immigration down on 8. So you're in the Yogesh building, the Vineyard building, you're down on 8 Hill Road. I think there are 1 or 2 more buildings also. All of these buildings can be brought together. The VDSM, all of them, they can be brought together. They can be housed in one building. And in there you also house the courthouse. And by doing this, technically and financially, it is a feasible project to go and talk to Mr. Williams at APS. But at the same time, you free up the present courthouse. I prefer, the people of St. Maarten prefer that the courthouse is our national museum. So that when we are driving through town or walking with our kids, we don't see sirens blaring, fellas on top of the roof with sniper rifles, police gardening off the whole place. A goddamn show. I understand it's a safety issue. But why in the center of town? Every day got courts. So every day you're going to have this nonsense if need be. And I'm saying, can we not be normal too? Can we not build a courthouse? We could build a $40 million jail, but we can't build a courthouse to ensure that our National Museum has a real place. And in the back, where they got the toilets now, we can put a section for archaeology so that CMARC also finds a permanent home. If we are serious about culture, heritage, then we cannot, in our right mind, have the St. Maarten Museum housed in a little room down on the Spatian Square. We can't be serious. I hope that the Minister of ECYS is listening today. I know my party leader is, because we talked about this. It's in our manifesto. And I want the government, this government, to do something. Do something about it. Show the people of this country that you're going to put your money where your mouth be when it comes to culture, when it comes to monuments, when it comes to heritage. Please, by doing this and moving the new courthouse to Pond Island and creating the present courthouse into the National Museum, I think you would have done St. Maarten and the tourism product a great, great, great gesture. And I know it will be a little difficult for justices, because now there is just walk from the courthouse to Holland House. Well, now they have to catch a gypsy or leave the police drop home, something. But that should not deter us. We're going to have to fix back up the building on the inside, because it was turned in upstairs into a courtroom, downstairs into a courtroom. We're going to have to turn it back. I'm sure that some of the things can stay, because they did a beautiful job in there. But I think for the museum, we'll have to make sure that people that know what they got to do, and then we're good. There's a whole set of bells in that building, and those bells can start to play their music again, like how it used to be in the olden days. People that know courthouse from the 60s, 70s know the bells, when Spritz and Foreman had bells and the courthouse had bells, and those things would give you a musical rendition every hour. This is what the tourism product is all about. You come to see culture and history, because people are sick and tired now of just the sea, sun, and sand. People come and they want to see the environment. They want to see culture. They want to see heritage. You know, there are things that we can do, and we got the infrastructure there already. All we got to do is make it a little better. You know, so I hope, I really hope that this is taken up. So, Minister, you got a deal or not? I hope the answer is yes. You know, so again, like I said, this can be done within the 4-year term. It really can be done. And now I'm speaking to my party. Since we got justice and we got culture, come together. Let's see how we're going to build that justice wing with the Prime Minister, with APS, see how the funding can be done, and let's get something done for country St. Maarten. Let me go over to one of the things that they is always tell me, don't touch it because you get yourself in trouble. Our Judicial Theatre. I was not surprised, but I had to laugh. The CBS, the central bank from Courthouse and St. Maarten saga with the now former director Trump has flared up again. Remember, there was a whole to do with Enya. Remember Enya and this, and I think Trump's son was one of the culprits in there with things in Miami. And I ain't gonna rehash the whole thing. Trump was charged, I believe in 2016, 17, with all kind of things, with his pension and money laundering and all, you name it, tax evasion, and Trump was acquitted. Lo and behold, They saw a lot of things in 2016, 17, didn't charge him with those things, created a new case, Hercules, and came at him now again. Now, it's clearly in Trump's 82 or 87 page notes that he presented in courts, it's clearly a witch hunt, he is saying. It's intentional, it's this, it's that. Irrelevant to what it is right now. I find it remarkable that you go to court with a man, you charge him, you see other things, you don't charge him with that. You put that aside and say, well, you know what? If I lose the first one, I'm going to go with him for the second one. You see, because the government is paying for the public prosecutor's office to do this, the government is ensuring that their people are being persecuted by those that don't belong here. I said it. Some will be mad, some will be saying, boy, you're crazy to say these things. But it's a reality. Look at Christopher Emmanuel. Kick down his door, arrest him. And then the appellate court says, but there's no evidence here for what you want to do. He's a free man. Go on, Mr. Emmanuel. But because they did that, he couldn't become a minister when they were making ministers in 2020. Emmanuel eventually left the party, so he never went back to become a minister. Lo and behold, they were so upset, they kicked down his door again. Come back with more charges, same period of time that he was charged for in the first one, the same period of time, same permit nonsense, same land nonsense. It is insane that the law allows this. Because in reality, the law doesn't allow this. This is abuse of power. That's what it is. Because I think the governor wanted to make a deal about duration of time, I understood. That you can be under investigation for a screening. And I'm saying, but this is stupidity. Because our law says 2 years. Charge the people. How long you want to keep him on a hook? 10 years? So for 10 years he's under investigation? Yeah, but it was so long, we had no time. Come on! You're destroying people's lives. You're punishing people. And you call it the law because the prosecutor says, it is my prerogative when I'm going to charge you and for what I'm going to charge you. And I say, okay. Then I want to ask them to consider trias politicas, because it's clear to me that the judicial wing, according to our governor with his unwritten norms, can decide who the government is. So there is no separation of powers like he spoke about. Remember, he said, we have the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and the executive branch. That's trias politicas he was referring to. But clearly, that's not the situation. If justice can influence who becomes a minister, while the law doesn't say so. Because the law is clear. They're separated. They're clear. The unwritten constitutional norms or governor's norms say different. Don't understand. Maybe somebody can explain that, because it is unheard of in a country that this can happen. And then to top it off, they go back to the standard 3 years prison sentence. Mind you, this is something that happened 15 years ago, in 2009. What they're accusing Trump of happened now. And then you see people that were there in 2009 and after, ain't part of it. But if you know this was happening and you know it was all so wrong, then why didn't you file charges before? Then you're an accomplice. And there are people in the central bank believe that they are untouchable. Because every time you read the names and you're saying, but wait a minute, these fellas were there in the Hero Bank too. But it's still there. They were there in the Inya Bank too. But it's still there. So are they the informants? Did they cut a deal? Because I know when the time is right, the prosecutor will cut a deal to grab the bigger fish. That's how they say it. They call them crown witnesses. It's just cutting a damn deal. I'm gonna give you a little low sentence, maybe a little community service or so, but we gotta get a big fish. It doesn't always work, but sometimes it does. And it seems that in the Trump case now, they are trying to go that direction with it. But again, when I read Trump's story in the newspaper, the only thing I can say is that anybody who goes out against the prosecutors, remember this: if you beat us, you can count on us coming back for you. It's difficult to say this, but it is a reality. And when you hear them telling them up front they want 3 years, they were looking at the bench and saying, do we have a deal or not, Your Honor? Airport time to make a deal. During the last campaign, all parties were talking about the airport and the airport saga and how many locals are being terminated. We need to make space for non-nationals and preferably Caucasians in the top management at the airport. The tables have now changed because those that were protecting them under first pressure from Knops and then from their own are not there. So the power lies by those that were screaming murder about the airport. And the questions are now, will the government instruct their board, at the airport in particular, the holding board? Because I tell them, I think it's too late already. The government, the former government, allowed 100 plus people to go home. And no matter what the situation is, sending home 100 people, unless you send them home with salaries for 2-3 years, they're going to have a problem eventually if the country doesn't have jobs for them. Because these are not 20-year-old people. These are people in the 50s and the 60s, and our pension is all the way up on 65 to 67 right now. There's going to be a gap in between getting a job to reach pension age. What happens then? So you might have kicked the can down the road for 5 years, but what's going to happen in 5 years? What happens after that? These are the things that we have to look at instead of how we do things. We always look just to the point of our nose. We don't look further. And then we get ourselves. What do you call that thing again? What is that? Oh yeah, the helicopter view. The strategic thinking that some of us don't have, but they always had. TLM is a great example. How great a helicopter view they had. Sent them 100 people. But again, we need to stop firing the people at the airport, especially the locals. When will we have a proper financial investigation at the airport, especially on concessions and things that happen down there? I think they know that a lot of things, I have read things on Facebook by former airport employees that would make anybody's hair under the back of their neck rise. But for one reason or the other, it was the norm of day. When will the new CEO for the airport be selected? And what will the criteria be? And who will do it? When will Mikey Hyman be put back to work? Mikey Hyman won all his cases. They had nothing against Mikey. They had picked him up, locked him up, and up until today, have you heard of the meter case? Have you heard of a court date? We are 3-4 years further, people. But because we love this, we love to see our own be destroyed. And then we cheer about it, yeah! But don't forget, those that are being destroyed are somebody's child. Just like how they're being destroyed, the possibility that your child is going to be destroyed is significant. Especially in the government-owned companies, when we allow this to happen. We got to be very careful. Will we now get, finally, a St. Maarten-based national CFO? Will we get a St. Maarten-born CFO? Like was part of the deal 4 years ago already? But up until today, we don't have one. We still got the boys from abroad telling us what happened in here. And when they get tired of jumping on a plane, they're gone. I think it's time to ask the new government if they will make a deal with the people of St. Maarten to clean up the airport. The people of St. Maarten need to know, do they have a deal or not? And this is not a minister I'm asking the government to do this. The Parliament of St. Maarten has also been sitting down idly looking and traveling the world, while presently more people at the airport with many, many years of service are being terminated for nonsense. What are you all waiting for? When can the country consider the airport a resolved matter? Do we have a deal, Parliament? Yes or no? GB. An accident, a serious accident in the making right now. I strongly believe we have reached a point of no return at GB. And if within 1 year there's no serious investment in alternative energy, like solar, this country will be doomed and at the mercy of others. I'm going to say something now that might shock a lot of people. But you don't have to be shocked, because it is the reality we live in. At present, the fuel clause is about 42.5 cents per kilowatt hour, while the production cost is about 25 cents per kilowatt hour. So our fuel clause is about 63% of our electricity bill. You heard me. Our fuel clause is about 63% of the electricity bill. And nobody is uttering a word about placing solar panels on all government buildings, institutions, schools. Use people's homes. Place solar panels. Have the solar panels feed right back into the grid. So it means you have less production at GB in the power plant and much less fuel. So your fuel clause will go down drastically. Holland made 200 million euros available in an envelope for sustainable alternative energy and sustainable economic developments. St. Maarten hasn't used a damn cent yet. And you know what I'm talking about? Oh, we got to make a plan. What plan do you need to make for solar power? What has the NRPB been doing? What has GB been doing? What has the Ministry of Romy been doing for the past 4 years? If they were not doing anything, and only now when this envelope came up last year, they could have taken the project from Saba, Stacia. They could have taken the ones from Curacao and Aruba or Borneo and implemented here. And please don't tell me about hurricane, because Saba and Stacia are hurricane zone just like me. You see, our problem is this. We do that good. We really do that good. And we take pictures good. But execute? Oh, no. That's a different story. Then we talk about market grid and this and that. All nonsense if you don't have alternative energy. We need to now, today, agree to do alternative energy, call Holland and make a deal. Yes, government, make a deal. The GB can get manpower. You send them 100 people from TLM. Maybe, just maybe, these technicians and these people that are going home can be reschooled to work with the solar power, in the solar power industry and maybe become part of a team that will oversee the solar power program in St. Maarten. Think out of the box, people. Become creative. The normal way of doing things has passed us a long time. Honestly, it has. And I honestly hope that we can do something with solar power. If there's anything that this government should really be focused on, is that. Because the GB bill affects everybody. And if GB makes about 50 megawatts, they use that in the day, and I think about 35, 40 at night. If in the day you can get 20, 30 megawatt from solar power, that would mean that you have a savings of at least 40 to 60% on your fuel clause bill. Think about it. Think about the amount of money you don't have to pay to Sol. Let's say you're paying Sol right now 4 or 5 million a month. That is 60 million a year. And you can save 50%. That would mean if you can save 50%, then you can at least have 30 million available to invest every year in alternative power. Think, people. Just think. And if you can't think, ask somebody to think for you. Because this is what it's all about. We need to look at it with a different pair of glasses. And if we don't do that, we ain't going no place. So, government, do we have a deal or not? Is alternative energy something you want to do or not? I need this government to recharge, reset its mind thinking, and restart the programs. Please share my podcast and also like and subscribe to my YouTube page. This was part 1 of Deal or No Deal. Take your mind out of the gutter when you hear the word deal and think of the TV show. If you take a chance, you can score big. If you sit back and do nothing and say no, you will not get anything. This has to do with, are we willing to take a chance and work and risk for the country? Do we have a deal or not? Bunks is out. Take care, man.